Unless you've been sleeping for the past few years, you've heard the term new economy. And unless you've been playing Rip Van Winkle, you've been aware of what's been going on in the stock market or in real estate prices. On Austin Faith Dialogue, we're going to be talking about what it means to live faith with those who are in poverty. Stay with us as we discuss that important issue of poverty in the midst of plenty.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
We know from reading and listening to the media that we are living in boom times, that people are experiencing the blessings of an economy that is going wild, if you will. But that's not for everybody. And one of the issues, of the many issues facing the faith community, is that of justice for those who are caught in the terrible hopelessness of poverty. It's not a pleasant subject, but a subject we need to deal with. And so we invite you to stay with us as we talk about that. And I have with me on the set on Austin Faith Dialogue, Josefina Castillo. Welcome, Josefina. Good to have you here. And Alberto Valderez. Welcome, Alberto. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
I frequently like to do a lot of warm, fuzzy type programs, where we can laugh a lot and enjoy the goodness of life. But I'm really concerned, as maybe many are in our society, about those who are facing the difficulty of poverty in this society of ours. Josefina, talk to us about you and where you come from and why this issue of poverty is important to you as a person of faith.
Yes. Well, I'm a newcomer to Austin, actually, because I've been here for just a year and a half working for American Friends Service Committee. So I'm originally from Mexico. I was born in Mexico City as a Catholic, of course, as many of Latin Americans are. And I was raised in a middle-class family that looked towards the future with hope. And suddenly, during the 60s, we were looking how the economy was dropping down, and this meant that people would be getting poorer and poorer. And there was a huge gap, which we now see very clearly between those who have and those who have not.
In the 60s, were you a student at that time?
Yes, I was a student.
And you were studying
time.
where?
I was studying at the University of Mexico, UNAM, who have a convoluted moment last year with the closing of the university and with the strike.
And what was your discipline? What were you studying at the university?
I studied sociology, and that brought up a lot of issues, very picky issues, like those of poverty. And just realizing that there are many people who live in very dire conditions.
Alberto, what about you? Where were you raised, and how did you happen to find yourself on this concern for the issue of poverty?
I'm a native Texan. I was raised in Angleton, Texas, and I moved here to Austin to study at UT. And I'm a recent graduate, and while I was at school, I thought about what I would do after graduating. And I came across a program called VES, Volunteers for Educational and Social Services. And through VES, I joined Austin Metropolitan Ministries, the hands-on housing program, working as a volunteer coordinator. And that has really been wonderful to work with homeowners who need help rehabilitating their homes.
Josefina, you and Alberto then share something in common, that your eyes were open to those who were caught in poverty. What is it about poverty that is so terrible for the persons that are caught in that? What is it that makes a person who lives in poverty find themselves struggling with that reality of hopelessness?
Well, I think it's the lack of basic needs, like not being able to access to education, not having housing, clothing, food, living under the poverty line. that's what I think.
What you saw in the 60s in Mexico, do you see similar situations happening now coming to this country? And you've been here in Austin for a year and a half.
Yes.
Do you see similar characteristics going on in our society at this time?
Yes, not as obvious as in other parts of or third world countries, but it certainly is coming. It's like a wave that is coming.
You saw a growing disparity in Mexico between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor.
Yes, I see that not only there, but as you say, everywhere.
Poverty, it seems to me, has many faces. There's the face of intellectual poverty. There's the face of emotional poverty. There's the face of spiritual poverty. And maybe they all come together, but there's also the face of economic poverty. Alberto, what about economic poverty? What does that mean as you go around in this community working for hands-on housing? What are some of the stories that you experience? What are some of the people that you see, and how are they dealing with economic poverty in the midst of a boom in this community?
I see them struggling with trying to make ends meet and putting things that they have to get in priority. And usually that means putting housing repair at the bottom because they have other much more urgent needs to meet, feeding their children, getting clothes, getting medical attention. And so housing often gets put at the bottom, and therefore their house just gets worse and worse. And so without help from either hands-on housing or some other outside help, they wouldn't be able to get their home fixed up.
How did hands-on housing, how did that begin, this helping ministry of AMM? Do you have any idea how that started?
Yes, it started out as a once-a-year event in the spring that called upon the member congregations of AMM and throughout the community to join as teams, individual teams of people, about 10 to 15 people, to work on one house each. And so this would, in particular neighborhoods at a time, so that's made it much more of an event as opposed to a single project, isolated project. And from that, Hands on Housing grew to a year-round program where we have volunteers fix houses throughout the year. And we, while we still have the spring event, how Hands on Housing got its start, we now have volunteers work on houses throughout the year as well.
Hands on Housing then is sponsored through Austin Metropolitan Ministries, but it's a cooperative event, is that right? The congregations, and also is the City of Austin or Travis County or any of those entities, are they involved?
Yes, they are involved in a way that helps volunteers help homeowners, and that's either through, for example, the City of Austin supports Hands on Housing through Neighborhood Support Program grants, or NSP for short. And those grants really help volunteers help homeowners a whole lot more than if they weren't there. Travis County helps homeowners by providing different types of aid, including $750 for homeowners who are eligible for self-help aid, which then is available for volunteers to use to get materials and supplies to help homeowners.
What does it mean to you as a person who's involved in this every day to find a congregation or congregations respond to the invitation to come and they are assigned a home? Do I understand that correctly?
They select a home from a file that we have of homeowners who've applied to Hands on Housing.
And homeowners who are watching this program who would like to have someone come and assist them in rebuilding their home, they apply through Austin Metropolitan Ministry, or is there a different way of doing that?
That's correct. They apply, just request an application. We send it through the mail, and it's just a one-page application asking what repairs they need, what repairs they've had done before, and just a little bit about the homeowner. And we get that back and start a file. And this file includes, first of all, the application, and then we have a volunteer go out, meet the homeowner, and make an assessment. This volunteer usually has home repair skills and helps the volunteers who actually will go out and do the repairs have a better judgment as to what it's going to take to fix that home for the homeowner.
I find this to be an exciting story, and I think it talks about some of the hopefulness that the religious community, people of faith, whatever group they are with, can tie into. And you do call upon the religious community throughout the city of Austin, not just one particular faith community, right?
Absolutely. as one of the programs of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, we call upon the different congregations throughout Austin. And AMM is made up of interreligious bodies and congregations. So our volunteers come from a wide spectrum of backgrounds and faiths.
I'm going to come back to you, Alberto, but I want you to be thinking about this. What do you see happening? What's the transformation between you first go see some people and then after these congregations, these people of goodwill come in and begin to develop relationships with one another? Josefina, you're with the American Service. Tell me about your group.
Yeah, American Friends Service Committee is the social service outreach structure for the Quakers, or the Religious Society of Friends. And we are all through the country and even internationally. And this office works for Texas, and we work on peace building issues.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that relates also with raising awareness to low-income communities about their need to be literate, to have housing, to have health, to organize.
You know, it strikes me when you say that, making them aware of the options, the possibilities that are there for them to tie into.
Yes.
I attended a meeting a few weeks ago that you all sponsored. Tell our viewing audience about that. What was that meeting about that was held over at Cristo Rey?
Well, that meeting was the first event that we had towards an international campaign that is called Jubilee 2000. And this is a worldwide campaign that started in England, but right now it also has a USA component here. And we are right now organizing the second event in Austin to support the cancellation of the debt of third world countries, which deals directly with poverty.
So when you talk about poverty, and Alberto, you talk about poverty, we're looking at that as an issue that is not just a localized issue. We're not just saying Austin, Texas has poverty issues. We're not just saying Texas has poverty issues, although we are saying that, right? We're also saying that this is truly an international issue, and that people from around the world are dealing and struggling and trying to find solutions for the question and the devastating issue and question of poverty. Why is there poverty? And then what can we do about it? Well, we're going to talk some more in the next part of the program, and we hope you'll stay with us because this is so crucial for all of us. We need one another, and in the interrelatedness of one another, not any of us can be wealthy and not be concerned about those with whom we share life in community. So please stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue, and we'll be coming right back. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Carl Gronberg, host of the program, and we're delighted to have you with us. For many of us, this is a very sacred and holy time. We call this the season of Lent, and during these weeks of Lent, we're examining ourselves and we're looking at how we're living our lives out in discipline, and we're choosing disciplines for our lives. And one of the issues that I asked for us to talk about early on at the top of this program was this entire question of poverty. It's not easy for me, and I would imagine it's maybe not easy for you. But for those who are struggling with the very reality of poverty, it is something that can strike at the soul of their being, their very identity. And so we have two very special people with us. Josefina, welcome back, and thank you again for being on the program. Alberto, good to have you here. You were talking about hands-on housing and what that does, and you mentioned, Alberto, that hands-on housing happens because there are people in our community, this wonderful community of Austin, that is so blessed. A community, though, that has some striking issues that we need to deal with racially and economically in the area of justice. That when a congregation is assigned to a family, transformations, things happen. Talk about that, would you please?
Certainly. When a team first comes out to a house to meet the homeowner, oftentimes it's in a part of town maybe that they've never been to, or maybe they've driven through it, but haven't stopped to meet anyone there. And so when teams go out and actually do the work and spend time with the homeowner, visiting, talking, you see a transformation on both parties, on the homeowner's part and also the volunteers. You see the homeowner light up with joy because they know that somebody cares. And that's really the most important part of the project, I believe, because as AMM's goal, mission is, it's bringing healing and hope by building community. So fixing someone's home is one way to build community.
You know what I think? Coming into someone's home is a very holy act, all right? I know that because I go calling in homes. And when you knock on the door and come in and someone invites you into their home, that's to me a sacred trust.
Absolutely.
When that happens with this hands-on housing, these people come in and both are recipients. It's not just wealthy people helping poor people. It's people becoming neighbors with one another, and the entire community is enriched in that process.
Absolutely. In the planning phase as well, it's a cooperative process. People from the communities that we work in are involved, letting us know who needs help, letting us know how they can help us, maybe helping get materials, helping get the word out.
You know, you mentioned early on before we came on the set, we talked about the invisible poor. Is that the term that you used?
Yes.
Josefina, you're new to our community.
Yes.
For myself, I've been here almost 3 decades, and so I've seen Austin change a lot. And Alberto, you went to UT, and so you've been here for a while too, and seen the community, but you're new. What do you sense about this community? You said some things to me before we came on the air, and I'd like you to say them again. What do you see about Austin, this community we love so much? You said something about, well, say it again.
Well, yes, it strikes me that the segregation that this city has, that is very obvious sometimes as you go through IH-35 and you look at the east side, so different from the west side. Our office is located on 6th Street, East 6th Street, and just a few blocks, you walk 5 blocks and it's totally different. Bars and entertainment and everything.
Right, yeah.
So just walking through the streets, the same street, but in different sectors.
As a newcomer, then, you see the divisions that are a part of our community, racial divisions, economic divisions, geographic divisions,
Yes.
and yet I sense in both of you, and also I believe in many people of goodwill in this community, a desire to kind of bridge those differences, to reach out to one another, because if all I want to do is count my money, I am spiritually impoverished. Is that correct, you think?
Yes.
And if I don't have any money to count, I am economically impoverished. And so together, in hands-on housing and other attempts, we can bring together some healing, some unity, bridging. And I really appreciate your insight in the community as a newcomer, because I think that's helpful to we who love this community and have lived here so long, that we can continue to be committed to the task of AMM. Anything else about hands-on housing that has really jumped out to you and brought importance to your life?
I think the opportunity to visit homeowners and just to see the transformations that I talked about earlier is just really wonderful, because that is a sign of hope that this community can improve, and that there are the resources here, the people, to do this.
If we have the resources here locally to do this, within our faith communities, then do we have the resources to attack this evil? And that's what it is, this evil of poverty, that strips people of their dignity, of their identity. Don't you think that's true? of their right to claim their place in God's creation? Do we have the same resources to help for world issues of poverty? Talk about Jubilee 2000. What's that all about, Josefina?
Well, the idea of Jubilee 2000 is based on a biblical tradition that is in the book of Leviticus, that every 50 years debts would be canceled and
what would be canceled?
Debts.
Debts would be canceled.
And original owners would be returned to their land, and slaves would be freed. So as to increase the brotherhood and sisterhood among humans and to bring peace and unity. So based on that idea, the Jubilee 2000 campaign was raised about a few years ago, looking towards the year 2000, which is very meaningful to Christian communities, so that to put pressure on financial corporations and rich corporations to cancel the debts of these countries stricken by poverty.
Are we dealing with corporations only, or are we also dealing with government?
Well, government and corporations, because right now, what used to be the nation states are really turning into corporate states. So this global economy that we are now into has brought good things, but also has increased the gap between the poor and the rich.
Alberto, you studied at the University of Texas, you told me, government, right?
Yes.
And as a student of government, then you must have possibly some insight into the whole idea of the global community and the global economy is what I hear Josefina talking about. Any reactions you have as a person of faith towards those kinds of issues that she's raised?
I think there's a positive in the global economy because people are more aware that we affect each other with our everyday actions. So that, particularly looking at markets. And so, therefore, that raises the awareness that we are more related. We are closer, more interrelated. And so that also brings a positive by understanding that our actions can affect those people who are on the other side of the world.
The positive of the global economy would seem to me, and I'm no economist and not even a governmental student, but it would seem to me, Alberto, has to be based also upon a sense of a global community, Josefina. That first of all, like those people in Hands on Housing who drive through a neighborhood, if they just drive through, there's not any kind of contact with those people. But it's when they stop, and as you offer in your program, they can come in and get to know those individuals. It would seem the same way would be for the global community and then stepping into global economy. American Friends Service Committee. Why are they involved in this? That's a social arm of the Quakers, right? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Well, because all the programs and all the intent of Quakers is precisely based on building peace, building a society with justice, so that as to increase the peace in the world. And if we don't have peace, then people cannot be fully humane. So part of the ideology of the religious society.
Then to rid ourselves of the evil of poverty is really an attempt then to call all of us to the fullness of our humanity. Is that correct? Would that be a statement that we can make, that if we can work against evil, then we can do that together as brothers and sisters and step out of and remain in our communities, local communities, state communities, nation states, and also reach out to one another. You in Jubilee 2000, you're having a special event. Tell our viewing audience about that. That's coming up soon.
Yes, it's coming up today, actually,
Yeah.
April 9th at 2 o'clock at the back of the Federal Building on 9th Street between Trinity and I don't know the other street, but it's right there in the Federal Building. And this is a prayer vigil where people of faith have congregated to support the idea of Jubilee 2000 that is promoting around the world. And this will be in conjunction with the Washington, D.C. campaign on Jubilee 2000.
So on the same day as you invite people in Austin to come to this event, on this day, April the 9th, so also people are gathering in Washington, D.C.
Yes, people are gathering in Washington, D.C. to build a huge chain of human beings just pronouncing themselves for the cancellation of the debt to poor countries. Yeah.
And what do you envision? Let's say, the best scenario that could happen, let's say that the debt is canceled. Josefina, what do you think would happen?
Yeah, well, I was reading about Jubilee 2000 that instead of cancellation of the debt and instead of giving loans to poor countries, that it would be better to turn them into grants and then monitoring the way that these grants are being implemented towards health, towards housing, towards clothing, towards education, instead of turning it into the interest of paying these huge amounts of billions of dollars.
And there are some who can barely pay the interest, if even that. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So it becomes like rolling over the same money because, well, these countries have to ask for loans just to pay the interest on the debt.
Oh, what a vicious, vicious circle
yeah,
that is.
It's a vicious. It's a complicated, it's very complicated because it deals with, well, we are talking about global economy. It's not easy for the simple individual to grapple with that, but I think that we have to be aware and just interest ourselves in what's going on.
Well, I'm one of those simple individuals, and I don't understand the complexity
No,
of
I
that.
don't either.
But am I
sometimes,
ever
but-
glad, Josefina, that there are people like you who are involved in it. And Alberto, what would you invite the people of Austin community to do with Hands on Housing? What would you say to them? Come and do what?
Come and gather your community from wherever you come from, the religious community, the business community, if you belong to a school, you're a student here, and gather those who you know and come in as a team, as a group that wants to benefit someone and also receive the benefit of helping someone.
And to make a difference. And you do. Alberto, thanks for
Thank
making a
you.
difference. And thanks for being a young man of faith who is seeking to make our community a better place. And Josefina, welcome to Austin. And I know that you're going to bless us, and we're going to make Austin a better place to live. And for you watching Austin Faith Dialogue, there is one who has loved me, and I've loved him through my lifetime, and said, I was hungry and you fed me, and I was in prison and you visited me, and I was in debt and you canceled my debt. Please join with us, and let's work together to fight the evil of poverty. And together, our world and our lives will be richer.